Commander Zethara looked at the star map with tired eyes. She had been staring at the same screen for 3 hours now. The blue dots showed where her ships were flying through space. The red dots showed where enemies might be hiding. But there were no red dots today. There had not been any red dots for almost 6 months. The galaxy was quiet. Too quiet. "Commander?" said Dr. Calvos from behind her. His voice always sounded nervous. Today it sounded even more nervous than usual. "We are getting some strange readings from the outer systems." Zethara turned around in her chair. Dr. Calvos was a small alien with gray skin and large black eyes. He was very good at his job, but he worried too much about everything. "What kind of strange readings, Doctor?" "Energy signals, very strong ones. They are coming from a system that should be empty." Dr. Calvos held up a datapad. Numbers and charts filled the screen. "The signals are not natural. Someone is building something big out there." Zethara took the datapad and looked at it. The numbers did not make sense. The energy readings were huge, bigger than anything she had seen before. "Where exactly is this coming from?" "A system called Sol. It is very far from here." "Most people think it is just an old legend." Zethara laughed. She had heard stories about the Sol system when she was young. Old tales that parents told their children to scare them. "You mean the Earth stories? Those silly myths about the angry humans?" Dr. Calvos looked uncomfortable. "Well, yes. But Commander, these readings are real. Something is definitely happening in that system." The bridge around them was quiet except for the soft humming of the ship's engines. Other crew members were working at their stations, but they were listening too. Everyone knew the stories about Earth and the humans who used to live there. According to the old tales, humans were a dangerous species. They were violent and unpredictable. They fought wars over everything. They could not get along with other species or even with each other. The Galactic Confederation had tried to help them become civilized, but it did not work. Some stories said that humans destroyed themselves in a great war. Other stories said that the Confederation had to destroy their planet to keep them from spreading their violence to other worlds. A few very old stories said that humans were still alive somewhere, but nobody believed those anymore. "Doctor," Zethara said, "humans have been gone for 1,000 years. Everyone knows that. Whatever is in the Sol system, it is not them. But Commander, what if the stories are wrong? What if humans are still alive?" Zethara stood up and walked to the big window at the front of the bridge. Stars stretched out in all directions. Some were bright, some were dim. All of them were peaceful. The Confederation has been watching that system for centuries. If there were humans there, we would know about it. This was true. The Confederation had ships everywhere. They watched every system, every planet, every moon. Nothing happened in the galaxy without them knowing about it. The idea that an entire species could hide for 1,000 years was impossible. "Maybe we should send a scout ship to investigate," Dr. Calvos suggested. "And waste fuel and time looking for ghosts?" Zethara shook her head. "I think not, Doctor. We have real work to do." But as she said this, Zethara felt a small worry in the back of her mind. The energy readings were very strong, too strong to ignore completely, and there was something else that bothered her. The readings showed patterns, organization, intelligence. Dr. Calvos did not give up easily. "Commander, what if I am right? What if there really is something important in the Sol system? Then the Confederation Council will decide what to do about it. That is not our job." Zethara turned back to her chair. "File your report and send it to headquarters. Let them worry about ancient legends." Far away, in a place that no Confederation ship had ever found, humans sat in dark rooms and watched screens. The screens showed Confederation ships moving through space. They showed alien planets and space stations. They showed everything the Confederation was doing. The humans had been watching for a very long time. They knew about every ship, every weapon, every secret plan. They had been preparing for this day for 1,000 years. One human, an old woman with gray hair, looked at a report on her desk. It said that Confederation ships had detected energy signals from the Sol system. She was not surprised. They had known this day would come eventually. How long until they arrive? She asked the young man standing next to her. 3 weeks, maybe 4, he replied. Commander Zethara is sending a request to investigate. The council will approve it. The old woman nodded. Then it is time. Send the message to all stations. Begin Phase 1. Across human space hidden. Deep in asteroids and moons and empty patches of space, people receive the message. They had been waiting their whole lives for this moment. Their parents had waited. Their grandparents had waited. For 1,000 years, humans had been getting ready. They were no longer the same species that had left Earth so long ago. They had learned. They had grown. They had become something new, something stronger, something that the galaxy was not ready for. Back on Zethara's ship, an alert signal began to beep. A junior officer looked at his screen with confusion. Commander, he called out, I am receiving a transmission from Confederation headquarters. They want us to investigate the Sol system? Immediately, Zethara felt her stomach drop. She had hoped that the council would ignore Dr. Kelvos's report. She had hoped that they would have more important things to worry about, but deep down, she had known this would happen. Very well, she said. Set course for the Sol system. Best speed. Yes, Commander. As her ship turned toward the distant stars, Zethara tried to push away her growing fear. The stories about humans were just stories. Old myths meant to frighten children. There was nothing to worry about, but as they flew deeper into space, heading toward a system that most people thought was cursed, Zethara could not shake the feeling that she was making a terrible mistake. In the darkness between the stars, human ships began to move. They had been waiting in the cold emptiness for centuries, invisible to Confederation sensors. Now they were waking up. The galaxy was about to remember why humans had once been feared. Dr. Kelvos checked his instruments again and again. The energy readings from the Sol system were getting stronger as they got closer, much stronger. Whatever was producing those signals was enormous. Bigger than a space station, bigger than a city, maybe bigger than a planet. Commander, he said quietly, I think we are going to need more ships. But it was too late to turn back now. They were already committed to this course. In a few days, they would reach the Sol system and see what was really there. Zethara stared out at the stars and wondered if she would live to regret this decision. The old stories said that humans were dangerous when they were angry. But they also said that humans were extinct. Soon, she would find out which story was true. The ship flew on through the darkness, carrying its crew toward a meeting that would change the galaxy forever. Behind them, other Confederation ships were following. Ahead of them, something was waiting, something that had been preparing for this moment for a very, very long time. Commander Zethara felt her blood turn cold when her ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The Sol system spread out before them on the main screen, and it was nothing like what she had expected. This is impossible, Dr. Kelvos whispered from his station. His hands were shaking as he looked at his instruments. The readings are off the scale. Zethara stared at the display in shock. Where there should have been empty space and dead planets, she saw the most incredible sight of her life. Massive structures surrounded every world in the system. Giant rings of metal and glass circled planets like jewelry. Space stations the size of moons drifted between the worlds. And everywhere ships moved with purpose and grace. How many people live here? Asked Lieutenant Vork. The weapons officer. Dr. Kelvos checked his scanners again. I cannot get an exact count. There are too many life signs, billions, maybe hundreds of billions. The bridge was completely silent except for the humming of machines. Every crew member stared at the screens in amazement. They had expected to find maybe an old mining station or some space pirates. Instead, they had found a civilization that was bigger and more advanced than anything they had ever seen. Commander, said the communications officer, we are being scanned, very thoroughly. By who? Unknown. The scans are coming from multiple sources. They are using technology I do not recognize. Zathara felt sweat forming on her forehead. Her ship was one of the newest and best in the Confederation fleet. Its scanners could detect a small rock from 1,000,000 kilometers away. But somehow, the inhabitants of this system were scanning her ship with methods her equipment could not even identify. "Should we scan them back?" asked Dr. Kelvos. "Go ahead, but be careful. We do not want to seem threatening." Dr. Kelvos activated the ship's most powerful scanners and pointed them at the nearest space station. For a moment, his instruments worked normally. Then the screens went blank. "What happened?" Zathara demanded. "They blocked our scans somehow." It was like hitting a wall. Dr. Kelvos looked confused and frightened. "Commander, their defensive technology is far beyond ours." Before Zathara could respond, the communications board lit up with incoming signals. The officer at that station put his hand to his earpiece and listened carefully. "Commander, we are receiving a message. It is in perfect Confederation standard language. Put it on the main speakers." A woman's voice filled the bridge. It was warm and friendly, but there was something about it that made Zathara feel nervous. "Greetings, Commander Zathara of the Altarian Fleet. Welcome to the Sol System. I am Ambassador Sarah Chun. We have been expecting you." Zathara looked around the bridge in surprise. How did they know her name? How did they know she was coming? "This is Commander Zathara. Who are you people?" "We are humans, Commander. This is our home." The bridge erupted in shocked whispers. Humans were supposed to be extinct. Everyone knew that. But here they were, alive and clearly very advanced. "That is impossible," Zathara said. "Humans have been gone for 1,000 years. Ambassador Chun laughed softly. "Gone? No, Commander. We simply chose to step away from galactic politics for a while. We needed time to grow and learn. Now we are ready to rejoin the community of civilized species." "Why now? Why reveal yourselves after all this time?" "Because the galaxy is changing, Commander, and change brings both opportunities and dangers. We prefer to face the future with our eyes open." Zathara did not know what to say. Everything she thought she knew about the galaxy had just been turned upside down. "Ambassador Chun, I need to report this to my superiors. This discovery will shock the entire Confederation." "Of course. But first, would you like to visit our world? We would be honored to show you what we have built here." Dr. Kelvos shook his head frantically and made cutting motions across his throat. Visiting an unknown alien world was always dangerous. Visiting a world full of humans, if the old stories were true, could be deadly, but Zathara was curious. And she was also a military officer with a duty to gather information. "We accept your invitation, Ambassador." "Excellent. We are sending you navigation data now. Please follow the course exactly. Our traffic control systems are quite advanced, and we would not want any accidents." As the data came through, Zathara noticed something that made her scales crawl. The navigation path was incredibly complex. It twisted and turned through the solar system in ways that made no sense, unless she realized it was designed to keep visiting ships away from important installations. "Commander," whispered Lieutenant Vork, "look at the route they want us to take. We will be completely surrounded by their stations and ships the entire time." Zathara nodded grimly. The humans were being polite, but they were also making sure that her ship would be helpless if things went wrong. As they followed the designated course toward Earth, Zathara got a closer look at human technology. What she saw made her more and more worried. The space stations were not just big, they were built like fortresses. Thick armor covered their hulls. Weapon ports were hidden behind innocent-looking panels. Every structure she could see was designed to protect itself and fight back if attacked. "Dr. Kelvos," she said quietly, "what do your scans tell you about their manufacturing capability?" Dr. Kelvos checked his instruments and went pale. "Commander, every asteroid in this system has been turned into a factory. The industrial output here is greater than the entire Confederation combined." "What are they building?" "Everything. Ships, weapons, habitats, mining equipment. They have enough production capacity to outfit 1,000 fleets." The ship continued its journey toward Earth, and with every kilometer, Zethara felt more uncomfortable. Human children played in gardens that floated in open space, unprotected by atmosphere suits. They seemed to be breathing vacuum as easily as air. Workers moved massive pieces of machinery with their bare hands, showing strength that should have been impossible. "Ambassador Chun," Zethara said over the communication system, "your people seem very different from the humans described in our historical records. We have grown, Commander. 1,000 years of peace and development have allowed us to become better than we once were. We learned from our mistakes." "What kind of mistakes?" There was a long pause before Ambassador Chun answered. "We used to fight too much. We were angry and impatient. We hurt each other and made enemies of those who tried to help us. It took us many centuries to understand that true strength comes from wisdom, not violence." Zethara wanted to believe that, but everything she was seeing suggested otherwise. These humans had built the most powerful military force in the galaxy. They had hidden it for 1,000 years. And now they were revealing themselves just when the Confederation was at its weakest. "Commander," said the navigation officer, "we are approaching Earth." Zethara looked at the main screen and gasped. Earth was beautiful beyond description. Blue oceans sparkled in the sunlight. White clouds drifted over green continents. But surrounding the planet were orbital rings that gleamed like silver jewelry. Millions of ships moved between the rings in perfect coordination. "How many people live on Earth?" she asked. "About 50 billion, Ambassador Chun replied casually. "Though most of our population lives in the orbital habitats now, Earth itself is mostly kept as parkland and cities. 50 billion people on one world. The entire Confederation had only about 30 billion people spread across hundreds of planets. The humans had more population in one system than the rest of the galaxy combined." "Ambassador, with respect, how do you feed so many people?" "We grow our food in space. It is more efficient than planetary farming. Would you like to see one of our agricultural stations?" Before Zethara could answer, her ship was guided to a docking station that was larger than most space cities. As they approached, she could see that the station was swarming with activity. Ships came and went constantly. Massive cargo containers moved through the air as if they weighed nothing. "Commander," Dr. Kelvos said very quietly, "this one station processes more food than our home planet produces in a year." Zethara nodded grimly. She was beginning to understand the true scope of what they had discovered. The humans had not just survived their exile from galactic civilization, they had thrived. They had become something completely new and incredibly powerful. As her ship docked with the station, Ambassador Chun's voice came over the speakers one more time. "Welcome to our home, Commander. We hope your visit will be the beginning of a long and peaceful friendship between our peoples." Zethara hoped so too, because if the humans decided that they did not want to be friends, she was beginning to realize that there was nothing the Confederation could do to stop them. The docking clamps engaged with a soft thud, and Zethara prepared to meet the species that the galaxy had thought was extinct. She had a feeling that this meeting would change everything. News of the human discovery spread through Confederation space faster than light itself. On every world, in every space station, people gathered around communication screens to hear the impossible reports. Humans were alive. Not only alive, but powerful beyond imagination. Chancellor Vexthal of the Hegemony faction sat in his office on the Confederation capital world, reading report after report with growing excitement. His assistant, a nervous creature called Pip, stood nearby with more data files. "Tell me again about their industrial capacity," Chancellor Vexthal said. Pip checked his notes. "According to Commander Zethara's initial reports, the human system produces more goods than our entire Confederation. Their population is also much larger than we expected." Chancellor Vexthal smiled. This was the opportunity he had been waiting for his entire career. For too long, the Confederation had been weak and divided. Different species argued about everything. Progress was slow. But if he could bring the humans under Confederation control, everything would change. And their military strength? Unknown. "Chancellor, Commander Zathara says their technology is very advanced, but she has not seen any actual weapons yet. Of course not, they are trying to appear peaceful. Chancellor Vexthal stood up and walked to his window. Below him, the capital city stretched out in all directions. It was impressive, but nothing compared to what he had seen in the human reports. Pip, call an emergency meeting of the High Council. We need to act quickly. Meanwhile, on the human space station, Commander Zathara was getting a tour that made her more nervous with every passing hour. Ambassador Chun walked beside her through corridors that seemed to stretch forever. The station was so large that they had been walking for 3 hours and had barely seen a small part of it. This is our primary manufacturing center, Ambassador Chun said as they entered a vast chamber. Machines the size of buildings worked automatically, creating things that Zathara could not identify. We can build almost anything here. Ships, habitats, planetary infrastructure. How many stations like this do you have? Zathara asked. Oh, thousands. This is just one of our smaller facilities. Zathara tried not to show her shock. This one station could build enough ships to replace the entire Confederation fleet. And the humans had thousands of them. They walked past a group of human workers who were moving massive metal beams with their bare hands. The beams had to weigh several tons each, but the humans lifted them as easily as Zathara might lift a small box. Your people seem very strong, she observed. Ambassador Chun smiled. We have made some improvements over the centuries. The human body is quite adaptable when given time and proper guidance. Dr. Kelvos, who had been unusually quiet during the tour, suddenly stopped walking. Ambassador, may I ask you something? Of course, Doctor. In our historical records, humans were described as violent and unpredictable. The Confederation tried to help your species become more civilized, but it did not work. What changed? Ambassador Chun's smile faded slightly. Dr. Kelvos, those records are written by the winners. The Confederation did not try to help us. They tried to control us. When we refused to submit, they declared us too dangerous to exist. But surely some accommodation could have been reached, Dr. Kelvos said. The Confederation believes in peaceful cooperation between all species. Does it? Ambassador Chun stopped walking and turned to face them. Doctor, how many species in the Confederation are truly free? How many make their own decisions without asking permission from the Council? Dr. Kelvos looked uncomfortable. Well, all member species have representation in the government. That was not my question. How many species can say no to the Confederation and remain independent? Zathara and Dr. Kelvos exchanged glances. The truth was that no species had ever successfully refused to join the Confederation. Those who tried were either forced to submit or were eliminated as threats to galactic peace. I see you understand, Ambassador Chun said gently. The Confederation offers a choice that is not really a choice. Join us or be destroyed. We chose a third option. We left, back on the capital. The High Council meeting was already turning chaotic. Representatives from dozens of species argued in the Great Chamber. Some were excited about the opportunities that contact with humans might bring. Others were terrified of what humans might do. We must approach them carefully, said Ambassador Cleth of the Peaceful Worlds Coalition. The humans have been isolated for 1,000 years. They may not understand modern diplomatic protocols. Chancellor Vexthal stood at his podium and waited for quiet. When the chamber finally settled down, he began to speak. My fellow council members, we face an unprecedented situation. A powerful species has revealed itself in our space. A species with technology and resources that could benefit the entire galaxy. Or destroy it, muttered someone from the back of the chamber. Which is exactly why we must act swiftly and decisively, Chancellor Vexthal continued. We cannot allow the humans to remain independent. Their power is too great. If they choose to become hostile, they could threaten every civilized world in the galaxy. But what if they do not want to join the Confederation? Asked Ambassador Cleth. Then we will convince them that joining is in their best interests. And if they still refuse, we will take whatever action is necessary to protect galactic peace. The chamber erupted in arguments again. Some council members supported the Chancellor's position. Others wanted to try peaceful negotiation first. A few suggested that maybe the humans should be left alone entirely, but Chancellor Vexthal had already made his decision. The humans would join the Confederation, willingly or not. He had worked too hard to reach his position of power to let this opportunity slip away. On the human station, Ambassador Chun was showing her guests the observation deck. Through the massive windows, they could see Earth hanging in space like a blue and green jewel. The orbital rings around the planet glittered in the sunlight. "It is beautiful," Zathara said honestly. "We think so too. This is why we came back. Earth is our home. We could never abandon it permanently. But why hide for so long? Why not contact the Confederation earlier?" Ambassador Chun was quiet for a long moment. "Commander, what do you think would have happened if we had revealed ourselves 50 years ago? Or 100? Zathara thought about it. "The Confederation would have welcomed you back. We believe in peaceful cooperation. Would you? Or would you have demanded that we submit to Confederation authority? Would you have insisted on placing governors and observers on our worlds? Would you have limited our technology and controlled our trade?" Again, Zathara could not answer honestly. The Confederation did indeed do all of those things to species that were considered potentially dangerous. "We needed time to become strong enough to negotiate as equals," Ambassador Chun continued. "Now we are ready." At that moment, Zathara's communication device began beeping urgently. She answered it and heard the voice of her communications officer. "Commander, we are receiving a priority message from Confederation headquarters. You are ordered to return immediately for an emergency briefing." Zathara looked at Ambassador Chun. "I'm sorry, but I must go. My government needs a full report." "Of course, we understand. But Commander, before you leave, I want you to know something. We hope that humans and the Confederation can be friends. We want peace between our peoples." "I hope so too, Ambassador." As Zathara prepared to leave the station, she noticed something that made her pause. Human security guards were escorting her party back to their ship. The guards were polite and friendly, but they were also clearly very capable. They moved with the confidence of people who could handle any threat. More importantly, Zathara realized that she had not seen a single weapon during her entire visit. Not one guard carried a gun or blade. Yet she felt more protected than she had ever felt in her life. These humans were dangerous in ways that had nothing to do with weapons. 3 days later, Zathara stood before the High Council on the capital world. She had given her report and answered hundreds of questions. Now Chancellor Vexthal was ready to announce his decision. "The humans will be invited to join the Confederation as full members," he declared. "They will be offered the same terms as any other species. And if they refuse?" asked Ambassador Clef. "Then we will explain to them why refusal is not an option. The galaxy cannot afford to have such a powerful species operating outside of Confederation oversight." Chancellor Vexthal looked around the chamber with satisfaction. Most of the council members were nodding in agreement. They understood the situation as clearly as he did. "Commander Zathara," he said, "you will return to the Sol system with a diplomatic mission. You will present our offer to the humans and make it clear that acceptance is in their best interests." Zathara felt her stomach twist with worry. "Chancellor, with respect, I do not think the humans will agree to those terms." "Then you will explain to them what happens to species that refuse to cooperate with the Confederation. I am sure they will see reason." As the council meeting ended, Zathara walked slowly back to her ship. She had a terrible feeling that she was about to start a war that the Confederation could not win. But orders were orders, and she was a soldier. Behind her, Chancellor Vexthal was already planning his victory. Admiral Korth stood on the bridge of his flagship and felt proud. Behind him stretched the Third Fleet, the most powerful military force the Confederation had ever assembled. 500 warships moved through space in perfect formation. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy a planet. "Admiral," said his second-in-command, Captain Rilix, We will reach the Sol system in 6 hours. Excellent. Are all ships ready for combat? Yes, Admiral. Weapons are charged, shields are active, and all crews are at battle stations. Admiral Korth nodded with satisfaction. Chancellor Vexthal had given him simple orders. Secure the human system for the Confederation. If the humans cooperated, they would be treated well. If they resisted, they would be destroyed. The Admiral expected resistance. In his experience, powerful species always fought before they submitted. But he also expected a quick victory. No single star system could stand against the Third Fleet. The humans might have impressive technology, but they were still just one isolated system against the might of the entire galaxy. Sir, said the communications officer, we are receiving a message from the humans. Put it through. Ambassador Sarah Chun's voice filled the bridge. She sounded calm and friendly, just as she had during Commander Zephyra's visit. Admiral Korth, welcome to the Sol System. I hope your journey was pleasant. Ambassador Chun, I am here on official Confederation business. We need to discuss your people's future in the galaxy. Of course, Admiral. We are always happy to talk. Would you like to come aboard our diplomatic station? Admiral Korth laughed. I think not, Ambassador. We will conduct this conversation from here. As you wish. What can we do for you? The Confederation Council has voted to offer humanity membership. In our organization, you will be granted the same rights and responsibilities as all member species. There was a long pause before Ambassador Chun replied. Admiral, we appreciate the offer, but we must respectfully decline. Humanity prefers to remain independent. I am afraid that is not acceptable, Ambassador. The galaxy cannot afford to have a powerful species operating outside of Confederation oversight. For the safety of all civilized worlds, you must submit to our authority. Another pause. This time, when Ambassador Chen spoke, her voice was different, colder. Admiral, you should know that we tried very hard to avoid this situation. We hoped that the Confederation had learned wisdom during our absence. Apparently, we were wrong. Ambassador, you will surrender your system to Confederation authority. If you refuse, I am authorized to use whatever force is necessary to secure compliance. I see. Admiral, may I ask you a question? Go ahead. Do you know why we left the galaxy 1,000 years ago? Admiral Korth was getting impatient. Because you were too violent and primitive to live alongside civilized species. No, Admiral. We left because we realized that the Confederation was a tyranny disguised as a democracy. We left because we refused to bow to bullies and conquerors. Ambassador, you are trying my patience. Will you surrender or not? Admiral Korth, I want you to understand something very clearly. We did not spend 1,000 years hiding in fear. We spent 1,000 years preparing for this exact moment. We knew that someday the Confederation would find us again. We knew that you would make the same demands as before. And we knew that you would not accept no for an answer. Admiral Korth felt a cold chill run down his spine. There was something in Ambassador Chun's voice that made him very nervous. Are you threatening me, Ambassador? No, Admiral. I am giving you one last chance to avoid a tragedy. Take your ships and leave our system. Return to the Confederation and tell them that humanity wishes to remain neutral. We will not attack you, but we will not submit to you either. That is not an option, Ambassador. Then may God forgive us all. You have made your choice, Admiral. Now we must make ours. The communication ended abruptly. Admiral Korth stared at the screen for a moment, then turned to his crew. All ships, prepare for battle. The humans have chosen to resist. We will show them the price of defying the Confederation. As the Third Fleet moved deeper into the Sol system, Admiral Korth expected to see human warships moving to intercept them. Instead, he saw something that confused him. The civilian ships and space stations continued their normal activities as if nothing was happening. Workers kept building. Cargo ships kept moving. Children kept playing in the orbital gardens. Sir, said Captain Rilix, the humans do not appear to be mobilizing for defense. Maybe they are smarter than I thought. Maybe they will surrender after all. But even as he said this, Admiral Korth felt worried. The humans had to know that A Confederation fleet was approaching. Their scanners were too advanced to miss 500 warships. So why were they acting like nothing was wrong? "Admiral," called the sensor officer, "I am detecting movement throughout the system. It looks like construction equipment is repositioning itself." "Construction equipment?" "Yes, sir." "Mining ships, cargo haulers, industrial platforms? They are all changing course and heading toward us." Admiral Korth laughed. "They are going to fight us with mining ships? This will be even easier than I thought." But as the first wave of human ships approached, Admiral Korth realized that something was very wrong. The mining ships were moving too fast, much too fast. No cargo vessel should be able to accelerate like that. "Sir," said the weapons officer, "those ships are not showing up correctly on our scanners. The mass readings do not match their size." "What do you mean?" "A ship that size should weigh 50,000 tons. But our scanners say it weighs 500,000 tons. That is impossible unless ... Unless what?" "Unless it is made of something much denser than normal ship armor. Something like compressed neutronium." Admiral Korth felt his blood turn to ice. Neutronium was the densest material in the universe. A ship made of neutronium would be virtually indestructible. But it was also supposed to be impossible to work with. The technology required was beyond anything the Confederation possessed. "Sir, the lead ship is opening fire." "Impossible. Mining ships do not have weapons." But the Admiral's eyes told him otherwise. The human ship fired a beam of energy that was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was not a laser or plasma bolt. It was something that seemed to make space itself bend and twist. The beam struck the Confederation battleship Mighty Thunder. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the entire ship simply ceased to exist. It did not explode. It did not break apart. It just vanished as if it had never been there at all. "What happened to the Thunder?" Admiral Korth demanded. "Unknown, sir. One moment it was there, the next it was gone. I am not even detecting debris." More human ships were approaching now. What had looked like simple cargo vessels were revealing hidden weapons that defied physics. Asteroid mining platforms unfolded like flowers, showing gun batteries that could destroy moons. "All ships, open fire!" Admiral Korth shouted. The Third Fleet unleashed everything they had. Hundreds of weapons fired at once. Energy beams, missile salvos, and particle cannons filled space with deadly light. It was enough firepower to destroy a solar system. The human ships absorbed the attack without even slowing down. Their shields, if they had shields, were invisible and apparently perfect. Not a single human vessel was damaged. "Admiral," said Captain Relics in a shaking voice, "our weapons are having no effect at all." "That is impossible. Nothing can withstand that much firepower." But as Admiral Korth watched in horror, the human ships began to return fire. Each shot destroyed a Confederation vessel completely. The humans were not just winning the battle. They were demonstrating that it had never been a battle at all. It was an execution. "Sir, we have lost 40 ships in the last 2 minutes. Our weapons cannot penetrate their defenses, but their weapons destroy us with a single hit." Admiral Korth tried to think of a strategy, any strategy that might work. But there was nothing he could do. His ships were helpless against technology that was centuries ahead of anything the Confederation possessed. "Admiral," said the communications officer, "we are receiving a message from Ambassador Chun." "Put it through." Ambassador Chun's voice was sad but firm. "Admiral Korth, you still have 300 ships left. I am offering you one final chance to withdraw. Leave our system now, and we will let your remaining crews live." "Never!" Admiral Korth shouted. "The Confederation does not retreat." "Then I am truly sorry, Admiral, but you have forced our hand." What happened next was the most terrifying thing Admiral Korth had ever witnessed. The space around his fleet began to change. Stars that had been millions of kilometers away suddenly appeared right next to his ships. Gravity wells opened and closed without warning. Reality itself seemed to be breaking down. "Admiral," screamed the science officer, "they are manipulating space-time. They are changing the basic laws of physics." In this area, ships began to disappear not because they were destroyed, but because the space they occupied simply stopped existing. Other ships found themselves scattered across impossible distances, their crews lost in the void between dimensions. Admiral Korth watched his fleet die and finally understood the truth. The humans had not been hiding for 1,000 years. They had been growing. They had become something beyond normal understanding. They were no longer just another species. They were something completely new. The news of the Third Fleet's destruction spread through Confederation space like wildfire. On every world, people gathered around communication screens in shock and terror. The Third Fleet had been invincible. It had conquered entire star systems, without losing a single ship. Now it was gone, destroyed by a species that was supposed to be extinct. Chancellor Vexthal sat in his office, staring at Admiral Korth's report with shaking hands. The Admiral's face on the screen was pale and haunted. His voice trembled as he spoke. "Chancellor, you must understand. This was not a battle, it was a massacre. Their technology is beyond anything we can comprehend. They did not just defeat. They made us irrelevant. How many ships did they lose?" Chancellor Vexthal asked. "None, sir. Not a single human vessel was even damaged. They destroyed 457 of our ships without breaking a sweat." Chancellor Vexthal turned off the communication and sat in silence. His dreams of controlling human resources had turned into a nightmare. He had awakened something that could destroy the entire Confederation. "Sir," said his assistant Pip, entering the office nervously, "the High Council is demanding an emergency meeting. They want to know what our response will be." "Response?" Chancellor Vexthal laughed bitterly. "What response can we make against gods?" Across the galaxy, other species were asking the same question. The humans had demonstrated power that made the entire Confederation military look like children playing with toys, but more frightening than their weapons was their restraint. They could have destroyed Admiral Korth's entire fleet. Instead, they had let some ships escape to carry the message. On the slave world of Vectorus, workers in the mining colonies heard the news and looked up at the sky with new hope. For generations, they had been forced to dig precious metals for their Confederation masters. But now there was something in the galaxy more powerful than the Confederation. Something that might change everything. Similar thoughts were spreading on hundreds of worlds. Species that had been conquered and enslaved by the Confederation began to whisper about freedom. Maybe the age of Confederation dominance was finally ending. In the capital city, the High Council met in emergency session. The great chamber buzzed with frightened voices. Representatives from dozens of species argued about what to do next. "We must negotiate," said Ambassador Clef. "Clearly military action is not possible." "Negotiate from what position?" demanded General Thoric. "They have demonstrated that they can destroy us at will. What do we have to offer them?" Chancellor Vexthal stood at his podium and waited for silence. When the chamber finally quieted, he began to speak in a voice that had lost all its former confidence. "My fellow representatives, we face a crisis unlike any in our history. The humans have returned, and they are more powerful than we ever imagined. What do you propose we do?" called someone from the back. "I propose that we ... Before Chancellor Vexthal could finish, the lights in the chamber dimmed. Every communication screen in the room activated simultaneously. Ambassador Sarah Chun's face appeared on all of them. "Greetings, members of the Galactic Confederation High Council," she said. Her voice was calm but carried an authority that made everyone in the chamber fall silent. "I'm sorry to interrupt your meeting, but we need to discuss the future of this galaxy." "How did you access our communication systems?" Chancellor Vexthal demanded. "This chamber is protected by the most advanced security in the galaxy, Ambassador." Chun smiled sadly. "Chancellor, your most advanced security was designed by species that learned their technology from us centuries ago. Did you really think we would not be able to improve upon our own work?" The council members looked around nervously. If the humans could take control of their communication systems, what else could they do? "What do you want?" asked General Thoric. "We Want what we have always wanted, General? To be left alone to live in peace. But recent events have made it clear that the Confederation will not allow that. The Confederation offers membership to all qualified species, said Ambassador Cleth. Surely we can reach an accommodation. Ambassador Cleth, with respect, the Confederation does not offer membership. It demands submission. Every species that has ever joined your organization has done so because the alternative was destruction. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Several representatives shouted denials. Others demanded proof of these accusations. Ambassador Chun waited for quiet, then continued. Let me ask you a simple question. Name one species that ever successfully refused to join the Confederation and remained independent. The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew the answer. There was no such species. I thought so, Ambassador Chun said. Which brings us to the current situation. You have tried to force humanity to submit to your authority. We have refused. Now you must decide what to do next. Are you threatening us? Chancellor Vexthal asked. No, Chancellor. I am explaining reality to you. The old order is ending. The age when the Confederation could impose its will on the galaxy through force is over. What gives you the right to make that decision? General Thoric demanded. General, we are not making any decisions for you. We are simply informing you that we will no longer allow you to make decisions for everyone else. Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the capital city. Emergency lights flashed in the council chamber. A junior officer ran in and whispered urgently in General Thoric's ear, "What is it?" Chancellor Vexthal asked. General Thoric's face had gone pale. Human ships have appeared in orbit around every major Confederation world. Thousands of them. They came out of nowhere. Impossible, Chancellor Vexthal said. Our sensor networks would have detected any large fleet movements. Ambassador Sheen's voice drew their attention back to the screens. Chancellor, you still do not understand what you are dealing with. We have been watching you for 1,000 years. We have ships stationed throughout your territory. We know the location of every military base, every government facility, every important installation. How? Whispered Ambassador Cleth. Because we never really left, Ambassador. We withdrew our obvious presence, but we never stopped monitoring galactic affairs. Some of us have been living among you for centuries, observing and reporting. The implications of this statement hit the council members like a physical blow. There could be humans anywhere. In their governments, their militaries, their most secret organizations. What do you want from us? Chancellor Vexthal asked in defeat. We want you to stop, Ambassador Chun said simply. Stop conquering species that want to remain independent. Stop enslaving populations that resist your rule. Stop pretending that the Confederation is a voluntary alliance when it is actually a galactic empire. And if we refuse, then we will stop you ourselves. To demonstrate their point, reports began flooding in from across Confederation space. Human ships were not just observing. They were acting. On slave worlds, human forces were destroying mining equipment and freeing workers. On military bases, weapons were being systematically disabled. Corrupt governors were being removed from power, but the humans were not conquering these worlds. They were liberating them and then leaving. They made it clear that they had no interest in ruling anyone. They simply would not allow others to rule through force. This is impossible, General Thoric said. You cannot patrol the entire galaxy. General, we are not patrolling anything. We are simply ensuring that species have the right to choose their own destiny. If they want to join a voluntary alliance, that is their choice. If they want to remain independent, that is also their choice. Chancellor Vexthal slumped in his chair. His empire was crumbling around him, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. The humans had not conquered the Confederation. They had made conquest itself impossible. What happens to the Confederation? He asked quietly. That is up to you. Chancellor, you can continue to exist as a truly voluntary alliance of species that choose to work together. Or you can try to maintain your empire through force and discover what happens when humans become genuinely angry. Ambassador Shun paused, and when she spoke again, her voice carried a weight that made everyone in the chamber shiver. Chancellor, you saw what happened to your Third Fleet? That was us being polite? That was us showing restraint? That was us trying to minimize casualties while making our point. If you force us to act without restraint, if you make us truly angry, then you will discover why we left the galaxy in the first place. You will learn why our own legends describe us as the species that fought wars against death itself and won. The communication ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. Outside, reports continued to arrive. Across the galaxy, the old order was collapsing, but it was not being replaced by chaos. Instead, species were choosing their own paths. For the first time in centuries, some chose to remain in a reformed confederation that actually respected their independence. Others chose to form new alliances based on mutual interest rather than fear. A few chose complete isolation, and humanity, having ensured that all species had the right to choose, withdrew once again to their own space. They had not conquered the galaxy. They had freed it. Chancellor Vexthal looked around the empty council chamber and realized that the Age of Empires was over. In its place, something new was beginning. Something that the galaxy had never